spectacle, apologizing for a secret government that has run amok, turning us into self-censoring paranoids. Comparing actions of a totalitarian national security apparatus to those of Paul Revere. Was he reading Ronald Reagan's speech about the killers we trained in Nicaragua called the Contras, that is, the counter-revolutionaries? The speech that Reagan gave calling them the moral equivalent of our founding fathers, is that the speech he lifted this line from? The vast majority of scholars and history buffs steeped in the American Revolution, of Lockean propositions, that is John Locke, of the natural rights of man and women, and the thinkers of the Enlightenment, who informed and whose ideas were seized upon by people like Thomas Paine and Jefferson and the rest to create our Declaration of Independence and our Bill of Rights and our Constitution. The thinkers that are aware of all of this were baffled and outraged by such a comparison. To compare a massive behemoth of a national security state to the actions of our original founding fathers. Didn't Paul Revere seek to end tyranny? And if you go back to the Declaration of Independence, I think you will find we have much greater cause today to sever our ties with Washington, D.C. than the founders had to sever their ties with Great Britain. This security state he has lamely defended is a vast monstrosity. Millions of people have top secret clearances. Most of them work for private corporations. It's been privatized. The majority of it is privatized. Reading the leaked emails of some of these private security contractors, Stratfor and H.B. Gary, we learn of their plots to plant false information to destroy journalists and activists. They planned to destroy Glenn Greenwald years before he broke the Snowden story. Of offers to charge the Chamber of Commerce $100,000 a month to destroy their political enemies by selling them top secret government information. Additionally, another example is Coca-Cola paying for services to get secret information that is classified and held by the government to destroy PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Of course, the people who exposed these horrors are languishing in prison now. In the case of Barrett Brown, who simply posted a link to where the Stratfor emails could be found, he now faces 98 years, largely for posting this single link. The judge in the case's husband was a client of Stratfor, yet she has refused to recuse herself, quite happy to destroy the soul and break the will of one of the few truly interesting and brash journalists remaining in the United States. Let us destroy him. The surveillance state, being largely privatized, suits those in government brilliantly, as they award these companies huge contracts and then go to work for them, lining their pockets, and then return to government to award them more huge contracts, and then back through the revolving door. This is a real tragedy and crime that has sped our way to being a large banana republic, the manipulation of government by powerful interests to milk it and create vast nationwide monopolies and make it very difficult for new small businesses to form. Intellectual property laws make it hard to do startups in Silicon Valley. In certain sectors, it's considered virtually impossible. The only thing you can do is immediately sell the startup. I think they call it a fold-in or something like that, where you basically already have an agreement to be bought when you do your startup. The fox is plundering the hen house. And when Obama is not massaging the bankers and defending totalitarian surveillance, he's channeling Bush, invading Libya, murdering Pakistanis by the bushel, where the U.S. is now the most hated country in the world, according to a recent poll. So what could get worse after everything I've told you? Well, it does get much worse, I'm afraid. Michelle Obama, and you may want to read this article here. You can Google it online. Michelle Obama came to California, apparently to help fight poverty and wealth inequality. But no poor or even middle-class people are allowed to attend. The cost of seeing her is $10,000 a seat to $100,000 a seat. The main things that she's quoted as saying is, we need you to dig deep. We need you to max out right now. We need you to write the largest check, as big a check as you can. And who are they writing these checks to? They're writing them to other rich people, not to poor people, and not to charitable institutions. It is truly disgusting. No, the tune is set. Wealth inequality. That will be the music to keep Michelle and Barack Obama as major power brokers, handing the reins to others. It is simply the musical score for attempting to return a powerful blue oligarchy to power. No discomfort will be inflicted on the wealthy and well-connected donors. People, we must begin to view inordinate wealth and inordinate power as something not to envy, but to be disgusted by. We need to own our houses, have local manufacturing, perhaps more expensive than done overseas, but in the long run, it'll pay off. Pride should come from self-sufficient regions where we make the things we need to exist. We could do it 300 years ago. We can certainly do it now. And in this respect, every person will have a part to play in that community if we actually build our communities to be largely self-sufficient, relying as little as possible on imports. This isn't the only way to conduct it, but it's a decent way to go. That is true riches. Ron Paul dreamed of an America like Hong Kong. We could be so rich, he exclaimed. But we should see through excessive wealth as a sort of pornography. I very much like and admire Ron Paul, but we must find excess disgusting, not admirable. Perhaps then things might change. There was a tradition, and there still are thinkers, who value modesty, frugality, thrift, decency. And perhaps our greatest hope today in the world as a leader is actually Pope Francis. Pope Francis drives a Ford Focus. He wears simple clothing. He washes the feet of the poor, the unbeliever, the criminal. Where do you see such examples in recent times? His predecessor drove a custom Mercedes-Benz, dressed in flamboyant outfits. The Pope also does not sleep in the luxurious quarters. He has simpler quarters. When he was Archbishop in Buenos Aires, he took public transportation. And there is a tradition of certain popes to have written very interesting things about the conditions of the working class and the poor. Just as in the New Testament, this was the core of Jesus' teachings. And he took the name from St. Francis of Assisi, who got in lots of trouble for tweaking the noses of the comfortable Catholic bureaucracy, shall we say. So let me quote just very briefly. On May 15, 1961, Pope John XXIII published Mater et Magistra, Mother and Teacher, and I shall post this in the footnotes, his first social encyclical. In the opening paragraph, the Pope restated the Church's right and duty to teach on matters of justice and society. He then devoted the whole of Part 1 to emphasizing that he adhered faithfully to the social teachings of his predecessors, Leo XIII, Pius XI, and Pius XII. Pope John drew attention to the teaching of Pius XI, that the wage contract should, when possible, be modified somewhat by a clear reference to the right of the wage earner to a share in the profits, and indeed to sharing as appropriate in decision-making in his place of work. Reinforcing his predecessor's teachings, Pope John wrote that it is our conviction that workers should make it their aim to be involved in the organized life of the firm by which they are employed and which they work. There are other great moral examples of leaders in the world. Pepe Mujica of Uruguay, who was shot, I believe, over 10 times, who was put at the bottom of a well in solitary confinement for over a year, staying sane only by talking to the beetles and ants. He is now the president of their country. He is beloved and lives simply, although he says that if he asked others to live the way he did, they would kill him. So he does seek economic growth for his people. But he also sees that the planet cannot survive if we are driven entirely by materialistic impulses to consume. We have to change the fundamental structure of our system to not encourage consumption. Consumption should be a side effect of our lives. It should not be the purpose of our lives. E.F. Schumacher, who wrote Small is Beautiful, this book right here, which I suggest if you read will be transformative to you. I think I got that right. Economics as if People Mattered. Wrote of Buddhist economics, the economics of a moral livelihood. And you cannot follow Buddhist teaching and precepts if you, for example, work as an arms manufacturer. He said that he could have called his writing Christian economics, but he jokingly stated, but then no one would have read it. These are the sorts of people we should admire and imitate, not the superficial oligarchy and its sycophants, such as the vast majority of people running Republican and Democratic parties. We have the example of Ron Paul, who said, if it came to being a